Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the ParentCamp Podcast, where we are talking about all things ParentCamp and the transformational family school community engagement model that ParentCamp is. I am April Draine, and I am joined today by two wonderful people. One we all know and love, Miss Julie Powell. I will turn it over to you to introduce to our listeners who we have joining us today.
Awesome. So today we have Dr. Randy Poe, and I can probably honestly say I would not be doing and where I'm at today without the support of Randy and just the encouragement and the building of parent leadership capacity. So a little bit about Randy. He's the former superintendent of Boone County Schools, which is the third largest school district in Kentucky, around 20,000 students. He was the one who just very much encouraged me to take more and more parent leadership roles in our school district. He currently now serves on the State Board of Education, which I also happen to serve on. So somehow our paths keep crossing. And is also the executive director of the Northern Kentucky Education Council. So our paths cross that way because we have a partnership. And I just think the world of Randy. So, and I know, Randy, why don't you fill in a little bit more of your background as far as where you went to high school, went to college, because we have some similarities there too.
Okay, well, thank you, Julie and April, for this opportunity to discuss community and parent engagement, one of my favorite topics. As you were saying, former superintendent of Boone County Schools, currently serve as the executive director of the Northern Kentucky Education Council. And one of those reasons is because of parent and community engagement. I grew up in Northern Kentucky, had the fortunate, had two great parents that knew education was important and knew it was an opportunity to change the trajectory of my life and my children's life, and education was very important. They instilled that in me. I grew up in Northern Kentucky, as I said, went to St. Stephen's Elementary School and then Newport Public High School and Northern Kentucky University and multiple post-secondary institutions for multiple different degrees because at education is a credentialing world, so every credential you have to have in a district office I had at different universities. So it was a pleasure growing up in Northern Kentucky. Love Northern Kentucky. It's a great place to raise a family, to learn, to grow, and to live. And spent 38 years in Boone County Schools, a fantastic place, a fantastic community, and that's why I continue to stay. And now I've been able to broaden my reach on a regional level and on a state level and even on a national level, just as you have. And that's why I'm so happy to be here and have the conversation with you all in relationship to community and parent engagement.
Awesome. We've always talked in ParentCamp or in our podcast, we've talked from different angles of parent and community engagement, but we're glad to have you as another vantage point in regards to parent and community engagement, because you were a former superintendent. What, from your lens, from a former superintendent's perspective, what is the importance of parent and community engagement from the educational standpoint, from the parent standpoint, from the student standpoint, from your lens as a former superintendent, the importance of it? Because a lot of times people don't feel that they matter, that they don't have a voice, or I'm just this. What, from your vantage point from being in the educational system for so long, is the importance of having family and community engagement?
Well, April, that's an excellent question. And I go back to Phil Shaleckley's work on working on the work and engaging students to a whole new level. And in that work, one of the foremost things I did as a superintendent working with that work is, what's the images of a school? And within that, Phil Shaleckley being an educational philosopher and a practitioner, and he was at Ohio State and then the University of Kentucky, and he's written many different books, one of the top 4 educational leaders, of the last decade and century. And in that, he's got an images of schools he talks about. And we have to look at our core business and what is our guiding metaphor in that. And if we truly want to be a learning organization, we have to treat parents as partners. And within that, we have to make sure that we're looking through our different lenses. Because as a superintendent, a principal, or a teacher, or the students, we have to look at and we have to say, how do we look at the lens of parent engagement? It's different for each different level of a person. So we have to look at our guiding metaphor. Do we want to be a learning organization, or are we just a professional service delivery organization? And within that, you have different levels. In Boone County, we always strive to be a learning organization. That is the adaptive change, the infinite game, as Simon Sinek would say. And we're never going to reach that. But what we have to do each and every day is we have to work to get a little bit better at each thing that we do. So at the end of the day, when a teacher, a principal, or a superintendent is looking at community or parent engagement, a parent as a partner, we want to say that parent is a partner and a member of our school community. We want parents to be powerful. We want them to be engaged. But the biggest thing, we want them to be a member of our community. We want them to be an ambassador of the work that we do, and they helping us, making sure that we are working on all cylinders to be the best that we can possibly be.
I like that. Parents as partners. And even you mentioned the word ambassador. Before we started this recording, Julie made reference to Parent Power Award as a superintendent. Can you speak to that? And even the parent ambassadors, something I have an idea, but I would like for our listeners to be able to hear more about that during your work as a superintendent.
Yeah, Julie and I go way back, as she was saying. Julie is an excellent example of a particular parent that becomes a partner and sees that parents are partners and members of a school community. We had conversations years ago when she was a parent at Stevens Elementary School. Her kids are now graduated from Boone County schools and off doing great, fantastic things at the post-secondary level. And partially that is because they're great kids, but they also have great parents that wanted to be involved. They wanted to be engaged in their child's life in school. And that's very important because we know, and we can talk about that as we continue, whether on this podcast or a future one, about the benefits that students even receive from parents being engaged. But with that being said, Julie asked, Dr. Poe at the time, how can I become more engaged? And I said to Julie, well, what we need to do is we need you to be a parent engaged person, a parent power person, as we called them. And but first, we also work and we partnered with the Pritchard Committee on parent as active partners in the school. And Julie took me up on that and went to that particular training, because I think what we have to also do, we don't just say, parents, we want you to be involved in school. We have to educate and give professional development to our parents on how they can be involved in schools and how they can be involved with the teacher or with the principal. So in this, we did professional development, and Julie, along with some other parents that we had, Paula McPee, and a few other ones at the time, what we did is we said, okay, here's a project that you can work on with the principal in support of the school. Because we want you to be more involved than just being in PTA. PTA and PTSA are powerful organizations, but what we want you to do is take one step further than that. We want you to move beyond the bake sales and the other things, and a good book on that. And we want you to be truly engaged and empowered. And they took on activities. But now what that did, so at this level that I was sitting at, is because I did this as a principal, I had the Parent Power Award. And then as I became superintendent, we took that to a whole new level, and we said, okay, what we want to do is we want parents that are engaged to win the Parent Power Award. But here's what they do, and we had to set the criteria up for that, and we did that. That not only did you care about your child, you cared about the children in your child's class, but you cared about the entire school. And how could we make the entire school better? And then from there, what we did is every principal got to nominate parents that won the Parent Power Award, and they came to the district office, and we gave them a Parent Power T-shirt, and they had to earn that. And so that
I've got two of them,
and Julie's got two of them. And because what we did is, no matter how many kids you have in school of our different schools, you could win one for each school. And the Parent Power T-shirt was in the school colors of the school. And we also gave them a water bottle and I think a little tote bag type of thing with the school on. So when they would go back to the schools or they go back to an event, somebody'd say, "Oh, that's neat," and think about the Superman vest or Supergirl vest, and they had a P in the middle of it for that parent power. And
I like it.
So what we did is they earned that, and you had to do different things, and so then the schools could take that and run with it too. And so each month we recognized 2 or 3 people from each particular school, and then from there we said, okay, when we had them at the district office, giving them their award and honoring them as parents that are engaged in growing parent engagement, we said, you know what we need you all to do is we need you to be our parent ambassadors. So Julie was one of our first parent ambassadors, along with Paula. And, I gave them, and I had pushback. I had pushback from the district office. And
Bill did not want to do that. He did not want to issue that badge.
And HR, and I issued a parent ambassador badge, just like a teacher or a staff member has in a particular school.
Oh.
And what that meant is they had a parent ambassador. They did all our background checks. They did everything. And what they were to do is they were to be an ambassador of a school. They could go help any teacher. They could drop in any time that they wanted. They had full access to the school. And the only thing I asked them to do as a parent ambassador, after, again, professional development training, was to be our ambassador for our school. Go out, talk about our school and what it's doing. When they hear somebody talking about our school and they're saying, hey, this school does this or that. Well, wait a minute. I'm a parent there. I haven't seen that. I can tell you this is what I've seen. I'll tell you what. You should call the principal and you should talk to them and you should go over and visit the school, because our perception that people might have of a school is not exactly reality, but their perception is reality to them until we change the perception. So the parent ambassadors helped us engage community members or parents. So it didn't just have to be a parent of that school, but if they're out at Rotary and they heard somebody, Rotary saying X, Y, and Z about a particular school, well, wait a minute, my child's there, and this is how things are done, and this is who you should go and see. And if that person doesn't want to go typically then that person stops talking about a school in one form or another, because they don't have the true reality of what's occurring at that particular school. So those parent ambassadors were helping us with the greater opportunity to involve the community also into our schools. I asked them to wear those to football games, basketball games, whatever, so that other people could see. And then when they asked them about the shirt, this is how you get the shirt. It wasn't just given to me. And you can't buy it. You have to earn it.
Nope.
And you earn it by being involved in your student, your school, and the district different projects and activities that we're doing.
I so love this. The empowering of parents to feel empowered to not only represent their school or be involved with their school, but to give them, and you mentioned it earlier, Randy, giving them the education, because there are parents who say, I want to be involved, but where do I start? I'm aware of the PTA and PTSA and other organizations, but I want to be more involved. So that's awesome that you started that. And Julie, I know we're fast forward years later. I don't even know if you even saw Parent Camp in the vision back then when Randy was giving you the opportunity to be one of the Parent Power Award recipients and then later to become a parent ambassador. But speaking from, if you can go back to just, I don't want to say just Julie the parent, but Julie pre-Parent Camp, what was that opportunity like for you to partner with Dr. Poe at the time to become a parent ambassador during that time? What was that like for you as a parent as far as engaging with your children and within the community and getting that badge to be able to go into the other schools and talk about parent engagement? What was that like for you as a parent?
So to answer the first question, no, Parent Camp wasn't even in mind at the time. That just kind of ended up naturally evolving after other experiences and,
Gotcha.
and
Okay.
things. So a lot of this goes back to SIPL, which April, Randy, if you don't know, April has been through SIPL. She graduated, year before last?
Yeah, 2022, 23.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Awesome. Congrats,
So,
April.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So we have another one in our Boone County system. We have another parent in our Boone County system, which I think we have like close to 70 SIPL parents in Boone County.
Wow.
So what SIPL stands for Commonwealth Institute for Parent Leadership, which is a program that the Pritchard Committee for Academic Excellence puts on. And when I went through it, it was like an in-person cohort. There was about 30 of us that went through. And we went to a hotel 3 weekends in the fall together. And so the benefit of that was the networking and meeting the other parents. And out of that, we had to do a project at one of our schools, which April, you did that video with SBDM. So my project was writing mentors for third graders, because in fifth grade, one of the testing was writing, and it wasn't improving in our schools. But we knew you had to start earlier than fifth grade to get the writing to improve. So a number of parents, not just SIPL or parent, we had a very, very engaged parent community at Stevens at the time. So a number of parents got trained in how to be writing coaches through the instructional coach at Stevens. And so at the end, so we would go in once a week and work with the kids on their writing. And at the end, it culminated in like a coffee house type thing where we had a little celebration. The kids did their readings. We had lemonade and cookies and stuff like that. But and what was very cool out of that was because it was around academics, we decided on the writing project because we looked at the school data. And that's something that came out of that SIPL was everybody looked at their own school's data. And that was a need from the data that we saw. So we wanted to make an impact on an area of need. It was that writing project ended up getting put into the school's CSIP, which is the Continuous School Improvement Program, or what's the P stand for? Continuous School Improvement Plan, because it worked so well. So here you have some parents going through a parent engagement course learning program, looking at a school's data, seeing a need, getting trained, impacting the kids, and then it goes back into the cycle. So it's like this proven kind of cycle type thing, because it was something that really affected the kids, improved the kids' writings. The principal saw it, was completely behind it, and said, hey, let's keep doing this because it worked. It was a way to bring parents and community members in to help impact the kids. And it wasn't our own kids. My daughter wasn't in third grade that year. It was a whole different group of kids. Oh, wow. But the way you raise the village is by raising everybody, not just your own child. But something that Randy mentioned was, and it brings, I don't know if Randy remembers this or not, but back when my son was in third grade, my son is very analytical. He loved geography, maps, and data.
Yeah.
So
I do remember this, Randy? Yeah, I met with him in the office. Yeah.
So my son, on his own with his dad, wanted to visit every single school in Boone County, but do it from, I think they did it from north to south, which meant they had to track back and forth east and west across the county. And then they did this on a Sunday, spent like all day Sunday doing this. Then he put together this little binder. Now keep in mind, he's in 3rd grade.
Oh, wow.
And it was what year the school was built, what the school's capacity was, how many kids were enrolled.
Right.
And then we printed out transparency overlays of each of the levels of the school, so elementary, middle, and high, because he wanted to see the feeder patterns.
Oh, wow.
I mean,
3rd grade?
3rd grade.
3rd grade.
Yeah.
Because
wow.
that was his interest. And we saw that was an interest area of his. Because he loves to study maps and then changes in maps and kind of things. And so that's a key role of us as parents is see what really intrigues and engages your kids and find ways to support that. Because they're going to learn because they're engaged. And so he put together this binder, and he was so proud of this binder. And I remember we were at Camp Ernst for, I think, a trivia night or something, and Randy was there. And we had his binder, and so I showed it to Randy. And he's like, oh, this is like really cool. He goes, and at that point we had a new school board member coming on. He goes, Dr. Brown needs to learn about the districting and the GIS system and how it feeds into our patterns and when we build new schools. Would you, Joseph, like to come and sit in on that meeting? Now, keep in mind, this is a 3rd grader. We go to district office for this meeting, this training session, and it had, I think Kevin was there, Kevin Castillo from the GIS department, his main GIS guy who runs the computers, Dr. Brown, Mike Ford, who is director of student pupil personnel, Randy, and I forget, somebody else was there. But anyway, so we walked in, and Randy had told them a student was coming because they wanted to learn about this. So I walk in with my 3rd grader, and Mike Ford's like, 3rd grader? But he was so good with Joseph because he had an interest in this. And it's like, if we can just get the kids, like, get really in tune to what engages the kids, you can find opportunities. So Joseph loved it. Like, at that point, he was like, I want to be the GIS person for Boone County Schools.
Oh,
like,
wow.
And Randy was fantastic with him. And it was funny, too, because we realized that the house across the street from us, their house was actually split in half between 2 elementary schools. So if a kid lived in one bedroom, he was going to Stevens. If he lived in the other bedroom, he was going to Yale. So we found a fix out of that meeting. But it was because of relationships and knowing your kids, and it just, I always appreciated him seeing that and then inviting Joseph to be part of that meeting of something that was of interest to him.
Julie, I remember that. It's one of those things in your memory banks that came through. In April, what it was is 2 districts in Oak Brook, which one was built from one end and another was built from another end, and for years the road didn't connect. Then after the road connected, it was pointed out that we had some students, because of the way that the roads connected, were in one school, the other school. So we actually cleaned up about 6 houses within that neighborhood of going to the appropriate school, because they finally made the connection of the road, but it was never put into the countywide GIS system. And that was a result of a true learning situation. But what Julie pointed out, what is key, is we have to, even as superintendents, we always look at ourselves as teacher, and a principal looks at themselves as a teacher too. And we're that leader, we're that designer of the curriculum and so forth. And see, with Julie, we looked at that as being a partner and a member of the school. So why wouldn't we invite in? We weren't. I mean, it's information that we're educating a new board member on, and this is something that Joseph really likes. So why not involve students into our particular work? because we look at them as a knowledge person that's gaining that particular knowledge. Because there's an example from all that. Not only do we talk about parent engagement, because parents can be members of a school board, but in our case, students prior to this, and we were the first district in the state of Kentucky that put a student representative on the school board. So from those meetings, as Julie's talking about, we created a student advisory committee that we listened to. But the key, what I thought was so great, because this is what parent and student engagement is also about. We would educate and we would talk to our students during that meeting. But not only would we ask them to go back and talk to their principals or teachers on a topic, we had them ask their parents questions on these topics too. So we had the students working with their parents, engaging with their parents. What this all comes down to is one key word. It comes down to trust, okay, and communication.
Yes.
Well, a few more, I guess, 3 words. The trust, communication, and being open. Being transparent with your community. Because your message might be tailored on a student level or a parent level or a community level, but it's the same message. The message does not change to the different levels. It's how you approach those different levels and what eyes and lens that you're looking through. But the key thing is, if you have parents engaged in a school, it's because they trust their administration and they trust what's going on and they want to be part of that. And that's where the community partnership comes into play. And what we're doing is we're building that community cultural wealth around that the school is the center of the universe for those parents that have kids in school. And it's also the center of that universe for parents that's not in the school, because we know our property wealth and value comes from having a good quality school system. You look at any area across the country and you see parent engagement, you see parent involvement, you see higher property values. Whether we like it or not, that is the capitalistic society that we live in. So good schools, you will find good parental parent engagement typically.
You both hit on so many things. Of course, we could never put it all in one conversation. Randy, of course, we're going to have you back. Let's go ahead and put that out there. So listeners, be on the lookout for Randy to come back to us. But I definitely want to make sure I point this out before we wrap up. I like the fact that you both mentioned, Randy, you mentioned the trust and the communication. And Julie, you mentioned just your son having an interest in something, and you as a parent were aware of it. You as a superintendent, you both kept mentioning certain words, and it came back to everyone is a teacher in some regards, even our students. And Randy, you made the reference, I think you said that students are knowledge persons or something along those lines. I may be misquoting you there. But
volunteer and knowledge worker, for the schools.
Gotcha. In the end, we all have some type of we're invested in some type of way, but it takes someone else being able to point out and see, wait, you as a student, even as a third grader, his interest in the maps brought up something else that was of interest to you as a board committee, and then you brought it on to other people who saw it. And even Julie saying, hey, what, my third grader? But it sparked something in her son to feel empowered in a way. We all are teachers in some regard. And Randy, I appreciate you saying, even if you're a superintendent or a principal, you still see yourself as a teacher. So with community engagement and parent engagement, and I like how we brought in the student engagement in this conversation, we're all teachers in some regard. There's something that we can learn from each other. There's something we can give to each other if we take the time to notice it, be intentional about it, be interested in it. So again, and we just got to the tip of the iceberg. So many things we were going to talk about that we have not even gotten to just yet. But again, we're going to have Randy back. But before we close out with today's conversation, Randy, is there anything, or Julie, anything that you want to leave with our listeners? Because again, we're going to have you back. You have so many different great vantage points from your involvement with education, but anything that you want to leave with our listeners just for today, or is this something they can look forward to in future conversations?
April, I'll leave with the closing thought for today and for future conversation. I think the primary thing that we all know as educators, or at least I know, as a sitting superintendent of a large district for 13 years, is that parents are the child's first teacher. And if the parent is the child's first teacher and they continue teaching, we're the secondary teacher, our children are going to be motivated to learn. And if we motivate them to learn, they're not going to be ritually compliant in the classroom. They're going to be student engaged. If the teacher shows them the trust, the relationship, and the core business of the fact that we want them to solve their own problems. If we just always give problems to students to solve, they're ritually compliant. But as teachers and educators, if we ask students what problems we need to solve, and we involve that student, just like we do the teacher or parent, then we have parents that's engaged, we have students engaged. Student and parent engagement leads to basically success, which leads to accountability within our school community.
I love it. I'm not going to even try to wrap that up.
Yeah, I think you wrapped it up pretty well right there.
Well, Randy, thank you for taking out the time to be with us on this episode of the ParentCamp Podcast. Julie, as always, it's great having you on.
Thanks, April.
And of course, Randy, we want to just put it out there in case anyone wants to follow. You're involved with several boards within the Northern Kentucky or the state of Kentucky. Any way that people can probably follow you or some of the work that you and the state are doing that you want to leave with our listeners for today?
Yeah, they can follow. I'm on, I guess, X now, Dr._Poe, or follow at the NKYEC, the Northern Kentucky Education Council. Or they can always, if they have any additional information or questions on this topic or anything else, they can view our website. That's nkyec.org. Or they can email me at rpoe@nkyc.org.
Awesome. And of course, you can always follow up with Ms. Julie Powell, who is all things Parent Camp. Julie, any closing remarks from you before we close out with our listeners for today?
I just want to say, to parents, you can do it. You be bold, reach out to people. Randy was superintendent of third largest school district, 20,000 students. But in the end, he's a person who cares about kids. And that's the thing. We all just care about our kids.
I love it. Well, listeners, again, so many more things that will be coming to you with these future conversations. But we thank you. Hope that you have enjoyed today's episode. And until next time, thank you for listening to Be